All right, everybody. So today I have Vivi Yokella on the channel again. I'm very excited to have Vivi on. She has really deep stillness, powerful energy. So one thing I just want to say for everybody watching this is just kind of feel into the energy of the conversation as well. A lot gets transmitted just through the energy. We'll talk about certain topics, but I would just recommend people to trust and feel into what you feel through the conversation and not worry too much about the intellectual side of things. Yeah, thanks for coming on again, Vivi.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for having me here.
So, yeah, what I wanted to ask Vivi today was, so in the awakening space, I see a lot of people going through really intense shadow experiences, but then a lot of people talking about um, the shadow side not not being important, and that it's not really relevant to awakening. And some people seem to not really have um, so much shadow work on the path. I'm curious, what is your feel on the differences between um, people that have a lot of shadow work? Because I remember from your conversation that you had a lot of that kind of suffering between the beginning of the awakening and the later stages of the awakening. And I play a lot in the shadow. It's where life draws me. So yeah, what do you feel on the whole topic of
Mhm.
shadow work and all of that?
Well, there's two things that comes up for me.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I've just noticed, and this is also a very large subject, but
Yeah.
there are so many different awakenings. So sometimes I like to distinguish between the first awakening
Hmm.
or the initial recognition of true nature, and then stabilizing into that, which is a form of awakening,
Yeah.
and then this deeper shift that is sometimes called no self,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's called something else. And it just seems like this first awakening, which really, well, first of all, the whole process that kind of leads into it is often this type of process of disidentification from the mind and disentangling from mental processes, and in certain way also from emotional processes, because we really want to recognize um, the context of experience. Okay, so in that phase of this journey, it's actually really beneficial to kind of disengage from the content of experience, which would
Mhm.
be everything that is changing, like all the emotions, all the thoughts, all the narratives, and just really be more interested about that, which I'm calling now the context. So which is
Yeah.
that which is kind of always the same, that which is not an experience, that which transcends all experience, and yet is nothing other than the nature of the experience itself.
Mhm.
So this type of process of can actually sound a little bit like bypassing, because
Yeah.
it's the opposite of the shadow work, where you would
Yeah.
actually be really interested, like about the content, and really acknowledge it and investigate it and go deeper into it. Um, So yeah, so when this recognition then takes place, and that can also look so different for different people. So it's so unique, I think.
Yeah.
But what seems to be really characteristic to it is this waking up from the mind-created reality
Mhm.
into something which is much more primary, like presence, awareness, consciousness, or just pure being, without any uh, constructed identities about it.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that shift is just so powerful and so liberating in itself, that is often followed by this type of period where it really seems like, oh, it's everything was just a story. It literally was just
Yeah.
thoughts in my mind. The whole suffering and whatever I maybe thought was trauma or some psychological tendencies that seemed to really define me, like, oh my God, it was literally all just mental constructs, you know? So, and that's very genuine, that type of realization.
Mhm.
It's just that it's like one facet of the diamond, so to
Yeah.
speak. So problems start to come when we think that this is the whole truth, and you know, because at some point, usually for most people, and then it can depend how much time it takes, uh, your human experience is going to then again pull you in, and it's
Yeah.
pretty much going to be exactly the same as before, but you're going to experience it now from a very different perspective, or from this vastness of consciousness, awareness, presence,
Yeah.
um, and so on. So that's what is then sometimes called the shadow, or the dark night, or trauma.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
yeah. So when that starts to happen, but for some people there seems to be this, that it doesn't necessarily happen at all,
Yeah, right?
or or they kind of find a way to just kind of abide in that
Yeah. Yeah.
newfound identity, which is, you know, so nice, and
Yeah.
like, why should I go back there, you know,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's, I don't have answer why for some people there
Yeah.
seems to be this option of kind of bypassing,
Yeah.
and for some people there doesn't seem to be the option of
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
you know. I know for like for me there wasn't an option, and
Like,
when I talk with you also, it sounds like for you there wasn't an option. So
no. And
yeah.
I feel like it partly has to do with like the roles that we came here to play out. Like what, you know, if we think of it in the form of like what each of our beings is here to emanate. Um, I feel because I was thinking about this because I had a conversation with a friend who was kind of more on the other side, who he had his awakening, and it doesn't feel like there's maybe a little bit of bypassing, but it still feels like very cleanly like that kind of purity of the awakening is there, but there just wasn't that drop down into the shadow, um, like there is for some of us, and yet what comes through when I speak to him is very clean. It's like it's very it's still a very pure transmission that I feel. And it's almost like, you know, we're here to speak to different groups or audiences. You know, like some of us, I feel is like are there to, and I feel like Angela is like this as well. It is like really draw in, um, a drop into like the depths of the shadow, and meet people there, and maybe some are just, I don't know, but like this is my feeling on it, are just meant to like transmit that light from that level, and that's their journey. I remember you and I think it was you and Ryan Burton spoke about it on his channel. I remember seeing a snippet, um of something also like, yeah, those that have a lot of shadow tend to then play out the role of like working with other people in the shadow, or kind of playing out like a bit more of a teaching role, because you really, you could explore every facet of human consciousness. That's kind of what it feels like to me. Like when somebody shows up in one of my containers, or these spaces, it's like there's really nothing to turn away, because you, but you have, like, you can only know that through going through the absolute depths of the shadow, like through life bringing you all of the shadow. Now you have the capacity to meet anybody in that, like regardless of how contracted the suffering is, or how contracted their experience is. So that's maybe
Yeah,
the perspective. Yeah.
yeah, definitely, yeah. um there's so much what you say that I would like to reflect back, but mm, I'm trying to recall some points.
Or just whatever feels relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, so the shadow is all in the body. Okay, the shadow is all in the body,
Right.
and that's the interesting part about it, because sometimes the first awakening, like it can be so clear, like you say, and it has really that genuine transparency and
Yeah.
the direct transmission that can come through from that place, but it can somehow be very much here, and the shadow is really really going to pull you into the body, because that's where all of that stuff
Yeah.
basically is.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives a different type of flavor than to the whole
Yeah.
awakening.
Yeah.
That it can have this type of immense depth, like
And
you
that's
were
what I
talking
feel
about.
in your energy. It's like this that really like deep presence that yeah, that flavor of it, the one that's really dropped into the body. It's like it can be like intense. I think I'm curious, do you get that reflection like from people that um like I get this sometimes like when I'm
Yeah.
um it's interesting for me, it seems to just often pull out like emotions in people, like even just in a random interaction or an experience, or like it's never random, it's always life like connecting us to the right people at the right time, but like it triggers things in people, you know, like even unintentionally, like that kind of a presence. I wonder, do you have similar experiences?
Yeah, I have some experience like that. So what what I what I get the feedback sometimes, that it can feel kind of intimidating when you get so kind of visceral mirroring back
Mm.
of everything, I guess, and also that the projections, they don't really stick anywhere, so they're kind of
Yes.
like instantly, just like if
Yeah,
you shoot energy, it's like you shoot
yeah,
yourself, and then
yeah.
that can be like intense experience, and projection is definitely like a big part of the understanding what the shadow actually is. Maybe we can talk a little bit about it later, because
Mm.
I think it's so fascinating. Like it's
Yeah,
really a creative power, like that our unconsciousness can project itself like that to other people, basically, so that we are able to enter in a communion with it, if we
yeah,
are able to understand that it is always a kind of co-creative relationship. When we interact with the other, we are always going to, the unconsciousness is always going to bring there something, even in the awakened state. Actually, it's just that this distinction between the conscious and unconscious it's going to disappear. So
yeah,
and there's not going to be anymore this tremendous like repression and resistance
yeah,
and judgment of the unconscious material. It can actually be really just interesting and fascinating to see that like I
yeah,
can like see that like that I project now my father energy into this person for some reason, and
mm.
it can be interesting then to just recognize that without any
Mm.
judgment or a problem about it.
Yeah, yeah, that's key. I love the way you said it there. Like just seeing it is such a big part of kind of working with the shadow, is just recognizing it. I feel like um Maggie talks about that really nicely. We were just for everybody listening, Maggie wrote a book that's coming out soon, and I feel like she that came through really nicely in her book. It's just that like seeing all the aspects of the human condition just playing out, like that's kind of also what awakening asks of us, is like to see, oh, that's part of it as well. Oh, just seeing it like, oh, that's included as well. These kind of yeah, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, she
Yeah,
explains it really really well in the
yeah,
book.
yeah.
Like that we all have we contain the multitude of
Yes.
humanness in us, so we have potential to
Yeah.
become anything whatsoever, and it's just a matter of causes and conditions that we
Yes.
end up in this particular expression. So yeah, it takes a lot of judgment away regarding self and regarding other, when that is
Yeah.
kind of seen really clearly.
Yeah, and seeing that judgment like of the other, like anything that can arise in the other can arise here as well, and that's when there's like judgment energy, because that's not being met here, or like being accepted or acknowledged here. So it's a like we don't want to see the reflection, we don't want to see that reflected back to us, because it's showing us what's here that hasn't been met yet. So that's when we do that. um Yeah, when there's a problem with somebody else's uh energy or whatever. Um, yeah, so there from there, let's talk about what you said there. Like, let's explore what even is the shadow, and yeah, how does it even work, this idea of the unconscious, or what's your feeling on it?
Right. Well, the shadow is usually people have this association that it's something dark, but actually it's anything that is unconscious in us and that has been disowned in us, or a potential in us that wants to be expressed, but that has been inhibited for one reason or another. So some of the shadow could actually be this so-called golden shadow, like like
Yes, yes.
some creative potential that we haven't actualized, and then we see someone else
Mm-hmm.
having actualized that. And that actually applies to teachers in spirituality. When you see someone who actualized the form of awakening, then it's easy to project on them,
Right.
that
Yeah.
longing, to experience in yourself. And then we start to idealize that person and put them in a pedestal. So that would be an example of a positive, so-called positive or golden shadow, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then the what is usually called negative, but again, these are just these
Mm,
terms actually don't mean anything, because nothing is really in itself positive or negative. But
mm,
negative in a sense that it's this socially conditioned, what
mm,
are socially conditioned as negative emotions or forms of experience, like um, that are almost always repressed for most people. Like,
yeah,
and then it depends on the person, like which is the most difficult of these particular emotions. But
yeah, yeah,
anger, rage, grief, or vulnerability,
yeah.
helplessness,
Business, yeah,
shame, unworthiness,
yeah.
guilt. Um, and just
Existential,
fear,
yeah,
terror,
yeah.
existential terror. Yeah, that's a big one.
That's the big
Yeah,
one. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah. I think those are the main ones, but they're actually portals, like all of those
Mm,
emotions that I just
mm,
mentioned. They can be porters for deep non-dual realization.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's how I see the shadow. It's not something that you need to kind of work through
Yes.
so that the awakening would be perfected or something, but it's actually a form of awakening of its own, a form of non-dual awakening of its own, that gives this well, depth that we were talking in the beginning. and
Yeah.
and I think a lot of creativity and a
Mhm.
passion also, when the shadow is not anymore
Yeah.
repressed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And intimacy is what comes to mind for me as well. Is like through that depth, there's this kind of, and I think Angelo talks about this quite nicely. That's what the flavor I always got from him is like, uh, the intimacy is in these spaces, right? Like, I remember in his book, he spoke about hopelessness. And it resonated, like at the time, it resonated so cleanly of this kind of hopelessness is the doorway to like the most intimate experience of unconditional love, because it's like through that doorway of this, it's like that is just something that's trying to hold on to being in control, or but on the other side of hopelessness is this intimacy, um that we were always held, right? Or there was never anything that
Mm.
needed to hold on or be in control. And it's interesting how scary it is, like how wrong helplessness feels, like how conditioned it is that like we're not allowed to experience helplessness. But it's like through that doorway of total helplessness is just this like endless um intimacy, or
And surrender,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like, it's often a gateway into this like deep
yeah,
surrender, when you really allow yourself to fully feel with your whole being, that helplessness and powerlessness,
yeah,
and that's kind of the mystery of it. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's what the symbol of the crucifixion basically is about. So
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
powerful
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for me, I often like reflect back on the crucifixion, and for me, it's such a um yeah, that surrender and that trust, that kind of willingness to completely um trust life to that, or trust to that extent, like to completely like let truth do whatever it does with the body. Um and yeah, I've reflected on that in like some deep dark nights of shadows myself, on like yeah, on Jesus's kind of embodiment of this, of like that willingness to uh walk that path without knowing like what's that there's resurrection on the other side, you know. And I feel like that's what these doorways, this is what it's felt like for me, and I think for many others. It's like you don't know when you're going into these spaces like that. That's the surrender, that's the letting go. You don't have the guarantee that on the other side, you know, you will be so-called resurrected, or like, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, otherwise it wouldn't be surrender. Like, yeah.
Exactly. And the mind hates that. Like, it's funny. Yeah,
Yeah, at first it can feel like just this total hopelessness,
yeah,
but then you kind of have to go even beyond the hopelessness, because that can easily become, the mind can kind of hijack that,
yeah,
and it, and then yeah, there's not even hopelessness to hold on to. Then it's like
yeah,
really at the deep end of the shadow. Is like, yeah,
yeah, because that anything can just become a new identity, or like that the identity wants to hold on to something there.
yeah,
So it's like, okay, yeah,
any kind of understanding, or
yeah,
even if the understanding is that, oh my God,
yeah,
nothing, it's all bullshit, or
yeah, 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 exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, there's no it goes back to what we were saying earlier, where like there's so many facets to this, and not one, you can't hold on to any single one of them, right? Like no view, even the view that there is no view, is just, again,
Exactly.
the mind wanting to grab
Hmm.
onto something, but it's none of that, right? And it's all of it as well. So
Hmm.
yeah,
So so then there is this even deeper layer of the shadow that I think that often can express as is kind of like the reptilian brain, maybe, that
right, yeah,
of our human nature, which can just feel like this really like primal or kind of animalistic, or even images or animals that people can start to have, that can be really weird, if you haven't heard about it and you're just
yeah,
doing spiritual practice or something. And also because you're kind of tapping into this type of space which doesn't feel personal anymore. It doesn't really feel anymore like a human experience. It's kind of like collective and so on. But I think there can happen some sort of actually really profound transformation of this, because it's one of the most deeply rooted conditioning is this
yeah,
survival and procreation instinct,
yeah,
for all living organisms. And when we start to tap into that, it will feel like this very primal kind of thing. And yeah, it's I think it's very mysterious how that can somehow start to almost like self liberate,
right,
in like through this type of shadow works, that this type of very very deep rooted fears can find a way to come out in the open. And
mm,
or ways to like very deep rooted kind of tendencies that, oh, I need to preserve, I need to
yeah,
protect,
yeah, yeah,
and this type of continuity, and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I could feel the energy of that as soon as you started to talk about that layer of shadow, just like the energy going even deeper,
Mm,
like from where you were pointing. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it was like that was a deepening that happened a few months ago, actually. Through Maggie actually pointed me there, but and it was exactly that. It was the that's what it felt like, was the letting go of the self-preservation, or that like letting go of itself. That's what it felt like, was that seeing that it's exactly like you said, it's the very primal need to even create a sense of safety, or create our own sense of safety, right? Or like even be
yeah.
in control of, or in charge of looking after this body or this experience, because there's still some identification with the body, or like for me, it was like the nervous system. And
Hmm.
yeah, that was quite a big deepening. Yeah. But I've also noticed in myself is there can be, that could turn into a bypass as well, or in certain I've just noticed that pattern. is yeah, what do you feel about that? Like the balance of
Bypassing in what way?
in like in the body or the nervous system, in like kind of seeing that there is yeah, in how the let me try to find the words for this. Because I think people can have that realization of I'm not the body at certain stages, and like there can be different depths to that. I think that how that can become a bypass in itself. Like so there's like this like realization
Right.
of no need to self-preserve, but that can also, if it happens at the wrong level, that can also become a bypass of the body. Does that make sense?
All right, yeah, that it because the identification is then in the absolute or in
Yes.
absolute
Yeah,
awareness, right?
exactly.
So you're kind
In
of
like
finding the self-preservation in that, which is
yes.
always the
Yeah.
always the same, and that can somehow apparently be detached from the body. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
can kind of transfer itself easily to those those realms, and yeah, so that then brings me back to where I started. I said, because I started to talk about the first awakening, and then I talk a little bit about the no self shifts. So my understanding of this deeper shift or the anatta, no self, because it's kind of like that the whole structure of experiencing in itself,
hmm
or you could say the container of the platform of the experiencing. So when that collapses, then it's not really possible. At least I don't understand how it would be possible to anymore to distance yourself in any possible
yeah,
way, but because
yeah,
it really collapses so thoroughly, that
right.
experience of the absolute awareness and manifestation through that shift, and then it's almost like that subtle container or structure. It managed to really hold everything, like even the unconscious, kind
Mm,
of neatly there. That it could definitely come out, and it will come out, if you're in the awakening process. But when that is not there at all, that was my experience. It was so bizarre that then it was just like totally come out. Is it like nothing would anymore hold
right.
it down, but it would come out in this type of very like formless and energetic manner, and everything would be kind of really hard to differentiate between anything or find any kind of landing ground, or so that's a kind of very interesting experience that can happen
Mm,
after this deeper shift, which can sound scary, and it's really also so beautiful. And if this happens, like everyone that I know, that that it's like it's so right, it's so
yeah,
right what is happening. But at the same time, I think it's good to talk about also some of this stuff, because
yeah.
it happens. It can be so helpful then to hear
Mm,
about this part of it, that it's not that often talked about. So it is not just that, oh my God, everything is just totally empty, and that there's also this psychic kind of almost like purge, that can
right.
take place in a very different way, now that there's nothing anymore
Mm,
managing the experience. And
mm,
yeah, so it can then really feel like there is no body, like the body is just kind of emptiness, or the sensations are so transparent and so kind of dissolved, and
mm,
but at the same time there's this unfiltered quality to the experience, and a kind of intensity that can be there, and all the resistance patterns or any kind of fixation, if it's moving through, will be felt like so kind of acutely, like with the whole of your being. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, wow, I can feel it. Yeah, my mind almost has nothing to say. Because I like, yeah, you point to that experience very clearly.
And I think that it's just one of the keys is just to know that it's really right, what's
Yeah,
happening. Because if you
that,
start
yeah.
to doubt kicks in, and you start to doubt something has gone wrong here,
Mm,
um, that's going to be felt like
Yeah.
so intensely, because anything there that is resisting, it's going to be felt with the intensity of like 1,000 times than it was before, because of the sensitivity.
Yeah. Like the real final grains of like resistance or personal will are like really
Mm,
so uncomfortable.
yeah.
Yeah. But what I like, yeah, and that I like what you said there because that feels so key for me is yeah, talking. That's why I actually wanted to have this conversation about the shadow is to make it because people do talk about it, like that's what I love about Angelo and you and all of that. But um yeah, the knowing that it's a part of the journey, right? Like I feel, and that's what I love about Maggie's book as well. Like when it comes out, is knowing that all of that is part of the awakening, it's part of the human experience. You know, there's nothing left out of this. And
Exactly. Yeah.
that's so helpful for
Yeah.
people going through
It
it
can
because
be like
yeah,
so cruel. I mean, it's not cruel, but it can feel so cruel and devastating, for the kind of relative experience of being, someone. It
yeah,
can be so absolutely like horrendous, but it's really the best thing, on the other side. It really is the best thing that could have ever happened. And
yeah,
like you will see like,
yeah,
that it was a blessing in disguise,
yeah,
the shadow.
yeah. It's brutal. It's really brutal for anything that
Yeah.
wants to hold on. Yeah, and
And this is also when some Kundalini kind of phenomena can play itself out, like these energetics, because there's something with the no self shift. At least that's just my sense of it. That it really rewires the system for
mm,
also very physically. So you can have some very physical kind of just weird kind of pain or
yeah,
phenomena going on, and so it's these energetics can happen. And if that's been already part of your awakening journey, like that specific type of um, energy Kundalini that it's been active, so it's very likely going to play itself out then
yeah,
more than
yeah.
ever.
That's a,
And
that's a
yeah.
good point that I'm glad you bring up because it's I find myself working with a lot of people in this space because it was a similar for me. It's like this mix of people struggling with like chronic illness, like weird nervous system challenges, which then like turns into an awakening. And the way I see it is like it was just a facet of the awakening. And that's how it was for me. It was like my mind initially labeled it as like, oh, I'm having a chronic illness. And then, you know, the mind can really turn it into something massive because of like resistance and control and trying to like fix and manage and everything. Um, but that for me feels like very much an energetic aspect of the awakening, like the nervous system adapting to all of this. And I'm glad that you bring it up because I like to uh, share that with people is that all of that is part of this as well. You know, all these strange physical symptoms that play out in the nervous system or um, yeah, like it can be really intense and it can be really weird, you know, like
Mm,
like you said, like really intense pain
yeah.
and things opening up. Like I get it in like all areas where there was like contractions or just like uh yeah, the body or the nervous system, like um yeah, like you said, kind of rewiring itself or and for me what it feels like is like this capacity to process energy more, like handle and for me it feels like to be a conduit like for energy, right? Of
Mm, yeah, I
yeah,
love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Conduit for energy for sure. Yeah, a conduit for the absolute. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
in the relative kind of energetics to
Yeah,
be able to, yeah, transmit that in whatever way it happens. And yeah, and this is also a phase where some like because the unconscious, it's usually there's some of this stuff that's, well, I don't really even necessarily experience it as past lives, because
yeah,
when this experience of time is not anymore anywhere to be found,
yeah.
then these so-called other whatever they are, like
Mm,
some sort
parallel
of
lives. Yeah,
remembrances or
yeah,
impressions that feel very clearly that it's
yeah,
not really like this life. So
yeah.
they can start to come true, but it can also all just be so kind of interpenetrative that it's very hard to say like what's
That's right.
happening, like
Yeah.
what am I feeling actually? Because it's actually just all these causes and conditions in the
Yeah.
penetrating, and it's very hard anymore to separate like your life
Mm.
from at all, like from the wholeness. You kind of just see this texture of reality, how all lives are so interconnected, and then you really kind of tap into this like the vastness of that,
Yeah.
implications of that, that oh, this is what karma actually is,
Right.
and like actually all of this stuff that seems so personal, like even the shadow or even trauma, and there's actually nothing personal about it in that sense. It's very personal, like there's this
Yeah.
definitely this deep intimacy, and it's always unique, like the
Mm.
way we experience reality, but we can also kind of start to sense that um, you don't even need to know what is it that you are
Yeah,
actually like processing or assimilating.
exactly. Right.
It's not really yours, but it's not
No.
really anyone else either, because they
Yeah.
are not really others also in
Yeah.
that type of separate units that
Yeah. It's just energies really, or like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
um,
it's interesting. That's what I feel like running this group content I was telling you about earlier. Like it's just interesting seeing like what's the energy that's being worked, and the whole group. Like again, it's interesting how like it appears through like different people's individual experiences, I suppose, like depending where they are in the journey and like what's unfolding. But often it's very much like the group is processing an energy together, and it's like,
mm,
and again, for me, it all like it's like you said, like all the causes and conditions that brought all the people there to process the energy, and it's like it's very feels very karmic as well, in the sense of like, um, yeah, the specific energies that are here is to process this. Like I was reflecting on the existential terror session that we had yesterday, and it was, yeah, it was like, whose is this? I don't know. Like it doesn't, and there's some people that were maybe feeling it more strongly than others, but it wasn't very personal. It was like, um,
right, yeah.
yeah, it's just
And
the
some of it can be some kind of ancestral
yeah, yeah, yeah,
stuff that is just suddenly kind of
yeah,
coming out, and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, ancestral, and then like, yeah, like past life comic links again, like how we talk about past lives. People talk about it differently, but there is that kind of sense of, yeah, there's something to be worked out energetically between these beings as well, like something to come through. Also, like, what I find is like something that uh, energetically somebody to support somebody at the right time for them to process something, like reality. um Bringing the right pieces together to help somebody to unlock exactly what needs to be unlocked in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that is like also so kind of, yeah, magical the way it seems to
yeah,
happen.
yeah, yeah,
And I often experience then also very strongly like this, that the fields are like really interpenetrating, and you're just and then the processing is kind of happening.
yeah,
And apparently no one is doing it. And
yeah,
um but
yeah,
yeah, that's what I feel often when I do like one-on-one work with people, or during retreats,
yeah,
if there's like a group of people coming together, and it's kind of yeah.
yeah, yeah. For me, it feels like, yeah, just opening up to the energy, like, or like that's what there is that um or like what people can do, I suppose, is that like, well, what it can feel like is to open up more to what's in the space, like for that which feels like the self, or that which feels like the individual, um, is to open up to the field that's already kind of, I guess that's just what I feel when you talk about that like merging experience. It's like the more um everybody in the space opens up to it, the more that field can just process whatever needs to be processed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I remember last time when you and I talked, then you mentioned like the Frank Yang. He had these like Vajrayana and Jochen type of
yeah,
interests or
yeah, yeah,
fascinations or coming up for him. And I had the same actually. And that for me, after I had the deeper shift, the no self shift, that I started to have
yeah.
this, well, remembrance is really the best word I have for it. they were like very kinesthetic kind of, and they also came with these Kundalini waves, but very strong connection to Tibet for some
Oh,
reason.
really?
And
Mm,
yeah, and but yeah, Vajrayana Chochen Churd, and it
mm.
was really bizarre. Like I could like suddenly be speaking, in that language, and I
Right,
wasn't really
right.
at all that
Mm,
familiar. Like
mm.
I like my background was much more in the Hinduism, and
Yeah,
Kashmir Shaivism, so I really don't know Buddhism well at all. So then I had the no self shift, which is
yeah,
first was really bizarre because I didn't have much context for it, and then I then discovered Buddhism, and then it started to make a lot more more sense. And
right, right.
but yeah, so a
Yeah,
lot of this type of stuff can start to open up, and yeah, somehow it's like all these aspects of awakening, they can really start to actually fuse and blend. So you have this
yeah,
no self is very much with the insight of the emptiness, and
yeah,
and so on, but then you have this like the experience of your own psyche actually like really opening up in this way, like
mm,
that can be really interesting. And then the shadow that we've been
yeah,
discussing, and then the energetics,
yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah, what like yeah, that's interesting what you mentioned about like after the no self. I think yeah, you like open up. Well, I don't know. It's funny. Like I read that like through your writings on like your Facebook and your website. Like that's the energy I get very strongly as well in those writings. Is that kind of like yeah, that Tibetan Buddhism. Um, yeah, that comes through really strongly. Um, but yeah, what else has opened up for you? Because like it's interesting. Like what
Mhm.
Frank's exploring now. Like I don't even know.
Mhm.
It's I feel like we go down all these different like our own paths take us all these different expressions of it, all these different ways that it can manifest in the relative. Uh, like with this kind of freedom to express however it wants to. And yeah, Frank's is quite interesting now. He's talking a lot about like mandalas and Buddha fields and these kind of things, which I think kind of lines up to what we were talking about the energy fields of like processing energy. Like again, that's what I feel when I'm working in those spaces, is it's just like creating this um yeah, this energy field. But I feel like we all attract maybe different individuals to or like it's not like we're doing it, but like the energy um like flows through a certain being that connects other beings to kind of create these fields that have a certain flavor of the awakening. Yeah,
Yeah. And it's in a way it's not at all predictable by any of our ideas about
yeah,
ourselves or about awakening, like, oh,
yeah,
what's the movement of that? And
right,
any kind of whatever is still left in our system that has this idea that, oh, this is the way it's gonna go, like,
right,
or because I had those like last impressions, like, oh, this is the way it's gonna go like this. And then it was so again like painful
right,
experience
right.
when
I
it was
follow you.
actually going to a completely different direction, and then when I was just trying to hold on,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I
yeah,
wasn't doing it, but
yeah, yeah,
it took
yeah.
a while then for the system to just totally just release into this like direction that I could have never been able to foresee, that, oh, this is the way
Yeah,
it's actually going. And then
yeah,
when it
yeah,
was
yeah,
going, and the letting go happened, I was like, wow.
yeah,
It's interesting. So this whole predictability tends to fall away, but at the same time, there is this definite sense of like, oh, this is very like intelligent. There's an order
yeah,
to this, whatever it's happening. In a way, it's all the time the most obvious thing, the next thing
yeah,
that is happening. But at the same time, it's totally unpredictable. So that's also one of the weird paradoxes that I
yeah.
that I that I find there.
Yeah, that's a really good point, what you said about like anything that still has an idea of how it's going to unfold is going to really feel uncomfortable. I can relate to that. Yeah, so that makes me curious, like is there still desire to like create things from from the experience of Vivi? Was that kind of what you were talking about that really goes away? Is like any because for me there was like and again, who knows like how this is playing out, right? Like where that comes from, whatever. But there was like, oh, these like visions and ideas of things to create, and then the right people like showed up, like oh, that had similar visions to like create like a like an in-person healing space and like a retreat center and all like these kind of things. Um, but it's like, yeah, that just came through a like it's got nothing to do with Kyle. It's just kind of, yeah, it's interesting. Like, do you experience that at all? Like, or is that what you were talking about that really falls away? Is the um that it's just completely like, yeah, do you get that feeling of um
Individuality. Um,
or it's
I
like
think there is.
the creative side of this, like the desire to create
Oh, definitely the creative
yeah
side. Yeah,
yeah yeah yeah
yeah.
yeah yeah
I think that can also come like
like the yeah
as a surprise, because when everything goes to the void and the emptiness, it just almost feels like this was it, and it's just this
yeah
is how it's always going to be, and it's just forever undying and
yeah
unborn, and but then when that's unborn and dying, it suddenly moves back into the form.
yes
Then
yeah
it's very different type of experience, and yeah, it's almost like pure creativity in so many ways. Like
yeah
we talked about projection. Okay, that's in certain way it's a form of creating reality. How our
yeah
psyche, unconsciousness is all the time creating reality, and then this like what I understand Kundalini, it's really besides being this expansion process, I just wrote a little text about it, but yeah, besides being this tremendous expansion process, it's also a individuation process, interestingly, because it's gonna really open up the unconsciousness and
right
bring up all this buried shadow material. And then when that is being integrated, assimilated, and owned, that is actually a very individuating type of process, I guess, in a Jungian sense. Of course, it's very different if you had these, I guess, these non-dual, shifts. So the
yeah
emptiness will always kind of be there, and so on. But you can at the same time have this sense of very kind of authentic individuality, instead of
yeah
the socially and culturally conditioned
yeah mhm.
kind of persona,
Yeah, that can flow through like a lot more unhindered when it's not being
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So what is your thoughts or what is your experience on something like manifestation, right? After all of
Mm.
these deepenings and shifts have happened, like what has your experience been there of like of so like of the individual that wants to um create something in this, like what has been your experience? Has that been a part of it, or do you have any thoughts on
Mhm.
that process of creation?
So I like my journey, I've had very much this type of waves of kind of like divine inspiration that
Right.
can really have some similarities with which is sometimes called mania, except that when I read about like bipolarity and mania, I don't really recognize that in myself. But I can definitely recognize from these texts how I've been experiencing the Kundalini awakening, that it tends to come with these type of waves,
Mm,
and the further my own process went, it's just like that the whole system was just a lot more clearer. Like the less there is fixation, less there is beliefs and narratives and
yeah.
identities. So when that's not anymore going on, then the energy can move through in a lot more clearer way, without getting kind of really fixated about some, stuff like, I guess, that can happen in money. It can just become
Yeah.
this very, very fluid experience. Like,
Mm,
like it's almost like it's totally just, the right brain, the
yeah.
right brain is the creative brain,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like when that happens, the other side of the brain is almost like completely
Mm, mm.
gone, and it's only this very, very um neuroplastic. There's a lot of neuroplasticity, and
Right.
uh,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and I think those kind of states can be very beneficial if you then use them to kind of dissolve and release and let go of any conditioning that there is still in the body mind. And again, without holding on to anything, without holding on to any visions, any images, any
Mm-hmm.
identities, then it just moves through. But it's there's a lot of creativity there, and it can be felt like with your whole of your body
Yeah.
when it happens. And like that's when I write a lot, a lot of my
Right.
stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And like I always write only when I feel that energy moving, even if it's
Mm.
sometimes just very subtle, the movement, or like a bigger wave. Like I always write from that place. Like I'm not able to write just kind of like, oh no, I just need to work to produce
Yeah.
text. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
not my way.
Yeah.
So I kind of um, yeah, I find it fascinating, but I had also a lot of repression, I guess, like all of us, I
Yeah.
think, have like around this type of energy, because it can be really like it's so beautiful, but you know, in our
Yeah.
society, we are told that you need to control yourself, like you can't
Yeah.
just be, you know, so kind of
What?
uninhibited, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. Like, what does it come through for you? Just like this, like for me, it can come through like this crazy urge for the body to move however it wants to, and
yeah,
then
yeah. Suddenly you're just you feel just
oh,
in communion with everything, and you know, and uh, and
yeah,
yeah. But to go back to your question, with the creativity, I think there's like a probably each for each one of us there is really this like it's kind of coded, like probably even genetically coded in
yeah,
certain sense, um, like a certain way of like what we are to bring out, you
yeah,
know, at the
yeah,
individual level, like through our lives.
yeah,
And I think I always kind of just sense the possibility of that, you
mm,
know, and but I wasn't able to access that prior to awakening, and it was like
right, right,
very
right.
painful to kind of feel that, like that type of purpose, I guess, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
like what is it that I'm supposed to do, or like it
yeah,
never really resonated what society was offering, you know,
mm,
like you know, the job and family and you know
yeah,
and
yeah,
career and that kind of stuff. Like it was like, oh, and the awakening also, you kind of know that okay, that's not going to give you meaning or purpose. It's not
yeah,
about that. So then it actually is really interesting to discover that on the
yeah,
other side there is this through this process of individuation that we can really discover that
mm,
like our unique kind of authentic
mm,
patterning,
mm,
and unlock that in our being. and and it's really like nothing at the mind level. It's really
yeah,
nothing like, oh, I can see that this is what this is my mission, or this is what I'm supposed
yeah,
to do. It's, in my experience at least, it's much more like physically felt, like it's something that you sense, you know, it's
yeah,
something
yeah.
that
You can
is
feel it. Yeah,
constantly like self-transforming. Is not some sort of fixed thing. And but you can just really feel that like
yeah,
now I'm fully alive. That's how it feels like. Oh, now I'm really like kind of fulfilling this like
mm,
this deep desire of
yeah.
um, actualized self-actualization, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that comes back to what you were saying about the golden shadow, like what, yeah,
Mm.
what wants to be actualized. Yeah. And I can, yeah, what do you feel like it is? So like if we look at your own journey, now that kind of all of that has been worked out, it's what is that kind of unique blueprint of you, the
Mm.
writing and the kind of the retreats and the teaching and the sharing of this? Is that what
Yeah,
it is
very
like?
much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I love the one-on-one work. It's really almost like an ideal work for me. I just realized like I've been doing it
Yeah.
now for a while, but I was like I feel so privileged. I actually get to do work, which is almost like I'm designed for that, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I know what you
Like
mean.
almost
Yeah,
like my life was like designed for that.
yeah,
I think Angela once said me that, and I was like, you know, like it is a kind of unconventional life. It's really good for
mm,
for uh, um, this type of stuff.
yeah,
And I get to connect with people in this type of way, that there is this deep depths, you know, because I think for me, what I always longed in social connections, was to be met with a certain depth, or at a certain depth
yeah,
that most people, I guess, they are just not comfortable or maybe capable of meeting at those
yeah,
depths. And it took me a while to understand like why, and of course to go through all that, like what's wrong in me, and why it seems to be like you're kind of on a different frequency, or
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So now when I work with people, I get to meet people, in this type of way that for
and
me feels
yeah,
like, it's there is this type of depth. So it's very fulfilling for me, and I feel I'm able to offer them also, that
that
type of,
depth, yeah,
presence and uh,
yeah, I know exactly,
capacity to like
yeah,
meet at many levels.
yeah, I know
Yeah.
exactly what you mean. Like that's what I've loved about like the working with people as well is like yeah, it's like the one space where we can just like really go like completely into
Mm.
into like the depths and just really like go like oh I love meeting people who are looking for that and like offering the space for it and yeah, creating the spaces as well. That's what comes through for me is like this it's like building or creation building spaces like more and more for this kind of um these kind of things. That's kind of what it feels like wants to come through. Um, yeah,
Mm. So
yeah, but
yeah, for anyone who is in the deep shadows, there's a lot of beauty on the other side.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
that's something also to pick up from our conversation here,
yeah,
because
and
that
it,
can sometimes give some, like, a kind of remembrance. Because I think deep inside we know, like, okay, like even it feels
yeah,
sometimes it's gonna last forever and it's so hopeless, and like, why is it still keep going on? It's been going on forever, and, and so on and so on. And but something inside of us knows that no, there is also this other side of it. Like it has to be. That's just the nature of reality, that everything has two sides, and this is the
yeah,
other
exactly.
side of the shadow, with like we are discussing now.
Yeah, yeah,
Divinity.
that's a good point. Like helpful for people because I think that's the whole point of talking or sharing about it is that because it does something does remember like even in the depths of the shadow or in the suffering when someone kind of points to um the other side of it it can be like a yeah it's just a helpful remembering for anybody that's in it and yeah that it doesn't last forever and
It can last years, but it
yeah
doesn't last forever. Yeah.
yeah yeah and it
Mm.
can fluctuate like that's what I found like you don't know and you don't need to know but like the mind that wants to like oh so like oh I'm out of the shadow like oh I'm in the shadow oh I'm out like that for me it's been a lot of like that kind of experience until eventually um and who knows maybe it's still playing out but like seeing that just like oh there's no need to hold on to anything or claim anything or
Mhm.
like believing like because this I see with people as well is like um okay yes I made it out of the shadow but then like if there's still something that's like being resisted it will get pulled back into it
Mhm.
and yeah letting go of that
Definitely. Yeah, there can be a lot
yeah
of oscillation. Yeah.
yeah then
Yeah, I think the whole process is just so much more nuanced that the mind can ever really understand. So that's why all the stages make it really, it's not really so,
yeah
yeah.
yeah and
True.
I always loved how Angela speaks about that there is no actual way that this unfolds. Like there's no actual stages. I think he once said like people show me how they wake up or like how like awakening shows you know shows him how it happens how it unfolds and I um yeah I appreciated that kind of message from him because I see it the same as well that like um there is no exact model or path or anything that like we were talking about like some people don't even have so much shadow and it's like
Yeah,
who knows why
yeah.
so, so
It's
there's
so
no wrong
unique.
or right at all with awakening
And then we try to talk about it, and use
yeah
this language to talk about something which is really
yeah
beyond description. And
Yeah.
And then, of course, we then try to find similarities with others, but
Yeah.
sometimes that can then also be then a little bit of a trap. We think we're talking about the same thing, but
Yeah.
when in fact it can be very unique what we are experiencing. There's some similarities for sure, but
Yeah.
actually, like I'm more and more starting to think that it's a lot more unique than we
Yeah.
were initially at all like inclined to think.
I feel exactly the same, actually. Interesting, like more and more of these conversations and seeing kind of like how people's paths seem to unfold differently after some of the no self and non-dual like stages. And it's like, okay, yeah, it really does seem to diverge into yeah, like we're talking about the same thing in some spaces, but like it does just have its own uniqueness. And it's so interesting also, like I'm talking with other people now who have all these kind of like energetic gifts as well, um that can kind of read even these things like we're talking about earlier, like um what the blueprint of someone's energy is, or like what their um natural expression is. And it's like that's its own whole world of like um, or side of things, as well as like kind of all of that. Um, yeah, gifts and energetic and psychic abilities as well. It's
Yeah.
not what it's about, but it's not left out of it either, you know.
Yeah, those can show up for sure. Mm.
All right.
Did we cover what you had in mind about the shadow, or is
I
there?
I think so. Do you have anything else? I think we covered it
Mm.
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
good deep dive across that's the shadow side of awakening. Yeah. Alrighty, I'll leave that there.